Welcome to this 20th meeting of fiscal year 2015 of the Milton Planning Board. I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman, and with me are members Emily Innes, Brian Furs, Assistant Town Planner Tim Zerwinski, member Mike Kelly, and the board's historian, Ed Duffy, who is with us for the last time as a member of the planning board, and he has made clear that he doesn't want any fanfare. But we would be remiss if we didn't make clear to Ed what a pleasure it has been to serve with him. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and everybody. And may I say a few words?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll say goodbye and thank you to my staff and colleagues that are sitting here, and Bill Clark, who's upstairs, and young Tim over there who's learning, and everybody I'm sitting with here. I thank all the town departments that help us all day long. If you ever watch the mechanics of how things go here, all day long everybody's helping each other. So the building department, the assessors, the selectmen, and so forth, for all their kind assistance. People in the street talk about us a lot. If you're out there, just listen. If they know you're on the planning board, you're going to get an earful. Fire Nursery and the Henry's plant are the favorite topics. I think it tells us something. I suggest that when I'm gone and we can have a night, we don't have a formal agenda, we can talk about how we do things, perhaps, and try to make this a better, easy to understand and easy to get a final resolution on some things. Just talk about it and talk about it some more, have the public invited and so forth, because this is difficult stuff and it's hard to get the best answer. We work hard at it, but that doesn't always happen. That's just a suggestion. And I also want to say that we have to plan, and anticipate and adopt and be proactive. Down in East Milton, we had what I would not call a good result of a major building down there. Because it was in my district, I'll take the fault for that. We should have anticipated. We didn't. We didn't do anything to plan for a better outcome than what happened down there. I think alcohol in town there are too many. We don't need them all, and I don't think it's best for our town to just keep making new places. So thank you. I will slip out quietly during the meeting, and thank you very much, everybody.
Now, we do have minutes, but they're not before us. And
February 12th minutes, which I think everyone has had a copy of, and I have an official copy that we can have the secretary
an official
sign.
copy for the secretary to sign if we approve them. What do you think? Shall we approve the February 12th minutes? I've reviewed them. They seem to be okay.
Yep.
They're actually probably ready for approval last meeting, but slipped through the cracks, as it were.
Well, it hasn't slipped through the cracks at this meeting, so we'll entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So you can sign those, Ed. Now, we're going to meet on Monday, May 4th at 6:30. And the first order of business is going to be reorganize the board. And then we are going to hopefully discuss how we are going to proceed in preparation, not for this town meeting, but for the October town meeting, because it is getting close. Surprisingly close. And I don't think that we will meet again before town meeting, unless, well, I don't think we will. So, let's see. Then we're going to meet again on May 14th, May 28th, and June 11th, and possibly at some time in between. But those are our regularly scheduled events.
Alex, excuse me, where will you be?
We will be meeting in the high school in a room to be determined. Probably our usual home economics room.
I'll see if I can book that one.
I'll bring the dough.
Juice and cookies.
All right. Let's see. What we're going to have a master plan report, please.
Bang.
Is it on the agenda?
You know, we could, A, not on the agenda, and B, you've got 6 minutes for citizens speaking.
Oh, we have citizens speak. I had totally forgotten. Let's. We need a citizen, at least one citizen, to speak on a matter that isn't on our agenda for about 6 minutes prior to our first public hearing. So what citizen would, other than that, we're going to have a master plan update.
I'll give you an update.
All right. Anyone want to be heard on a matter of importance and interest? Or interest? All right.
Looks like I have a 6 minute.
Master plan update.
All right, so as members of the board probably know, we had accepted some comments from the final plan that you received in December. Those comments are currently being incorporated by Tim into the master plan. They'll be reviewed by our master plan consultant, and boom, it's on.
But
It flipped off, okay. All right, let me start over again.
right at the very beginning.
So the master plan is currently being revised based on some comments received from members of the board. Tim's doing a great job on that. The master planning consultant will review those revisions, and I would expect it to come to the board for a vote in May. So that's where we are with that. Coming out of the master plan, and to follow up on what you alluded to as our topic for the May 4th meeting, is there were several recommendations in the master plan for possible zoning articles for October. And throughout this past year, I think we've all been taking notes of other articles that might come up for October. So I've made a list of them, given them to Tim. Alex came up with some as well. So what we're going to do on the 4th is we're going to talk about what those articles are, see which ones we feel, the board feels, is a priority for moving forward for October, and then, lucky all of us, start assigning them out for research. So the list is longer than I think town meeting has an appetite for, but it should give us plenty of choice for discussion and for assignments. So be prepared.
And the interesting thing is that even if we were to cull the articles,
Yes.
then citizens who disagree with our choice
Yes.
could easily come in with a citizens article on the one of the culled subjects.
That's always a possibility, yeah. So that's something we might want to take into account. If there's something that people have been talking about, we should, and we know that that's been a subject of discussion, we should make sure to look at it carefully before deciding where it goes. Anything that we don't do for this town meeting is obviously a potential for the October 2016 town meeting as well. So, but I think the prioritization will be an interesting discussion. It's a long list, so town meeting will have a lot of zoning articles for October. And he's smiling because he's not going to have to do the research.
Well, I was at a school where one of my classmates had just been kicked out of the school, and he came down to French class, and the teacher was assigning things, and whenever he said, "Who wants to do this?" Rufus would raise his hand. "I'll do that, I'll do that." Rufus volunteered to do practically everything,
can
The
imagine.
teacher was a little absent-minded, didn't really notice what was going on, and it worked out beautifully.
So, well, I think the list will be a good one, and we had talked last fall about doing some, so we usually come up with our list, we bring the articles forward, they get on the warrant, we then have our public hearing and then go to town meeting. One of the things we talked about doing last fall was having 1 or 2 public meetings prior to putting these onto the warrant to get some feedback from people before the language actually goes onto the warrant. So I imagine we will be scheduling those. I think the warrant is usually the very beginning of August. So there'll be summer meetings, but it'll be the possibility for people to give us some feedback.
This will be good. Now, it's time for the town planners report. 2 minutes, Bill.
I'm going to pass and go to Tim.
The assistant town planners report.
I recently attended a workshop at the Commonwealth Archives about a historic preservation program that the Commonwealth runs that I'm going to be sitting down and talking to Bill about shortly. It's a pot of money that I don't think that Milton has taken advantage of. Basically, any property that we own that's on the state registry, we can get funds to either do pre-development studies for how to preserve it or money for bricks and mortar projects to actually, it's a matching program, but I think we have plenty of sites in town that we can put together a good application for, so I think it's definitely something that we should, I learned a lot. There's a lot of people around Eastern Massachusetts that have pretty good projects, but none better than ours, I think, so I think it's something we should look into.
Excellent.
That was an excellent report.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Does the chair have a report?
the chair is trying to see what time his watch says it is. Chair's watch is actually a little,
6:45 on Brian's computer.
For the computer.
all right, good. Comcast time is,
Well
of course,
done. Right.
our. So now we're going to do a public hearing on what I believe to be a zoning article, which is in your warrant, if you brought it. In your warrant is Article 47. And this has to do with declaring a moratorium on allowing certain signs, similar illuminated signage, prohibited signage, and cloth advertising banner. And it contemplates a 5-member study committee to look at the commercial signage bylaws and make recommendations which should be acted on by the town meeting. So, and the reason I think this is a zoning bylaw is that we have zoning bylaws that permit signs, and this would basically not permit signs. And it seems to me this would, if this isn't zoning, I don't know what it is. And the other thing is that if you say to the town meeting, declare a moratorium without putting it somewhere, like in the zoning or the general bylaws or something, just creating a moratorium in the middle of a space without having a cubby for it is, doesn't seem to me that this would be a appropriate procedure. So, do we have a proponent to speak for this article?
There might be other people to speak of,
There might be other people where?
to speak about it.
Yeah, I'll ask,
I'm going to be brief because you all have my things, and be grateful my printer doesn't work, so you're not getting any more pictures. But the Warren Committee comment before the hard copy came out was different, slightly different from this. So I'm responding somewhat to that. But anyhow,
Somewhat
first of all,
to the warrant, or?
different from this, yeah. The one that was on the website.
But these are the
This is
comments.
it, yeah. And
Okay.
anyhow, I don't think I have to go over the fact that Milton should be unique. We're not simply an extension of Dorchester and Quincy, not that I grew up in Dorchester and I love Quincy, but we're not simply an extension of them. And there's so many people that work so hard in this town to protect it, that it's just a shame that what has happened has happened. Be sure that what's allowed in East Milton will set precedents for Central Ave, Randolph Ave, Route 138. Now, this article, actually, what I need from the planning board is for you to adjust the article. It should say non-conforming signs, in that, on allowing non-conforming neon and LED signs. And neon and LED backlit signs is what that should say.
In place of what?
Nothing.
In place of what?
Okay, the town will vote to declare a moratorium immediately on allowing non-conforming neon and LED backlit signs, is what it should say. I thought everybody would know what. And the article would simply then say, it asks that the current bylaws be observed until a full study can be completed. The bylaws are not being observed now. About 2 months ago, the selectmen were asked, just casually, is it all right to put the signs at an angle? And they nodded yes. So now signs at an angle are going up. Okay. Commercial banking and even gas stations can do very well without backlit neon and LED signs. This is evident in dozens of communities in Massachusetts. And I'll say Hingham because I'll pay for your gas if you want to go down there. Route 3A from the Weymouth line and into the Hingham shipyard are examples of successful commercial operations without neon LED signs. And actually, I made my daughter stop the other day because the gas station sign on 3A is lit by light bulbs, and it's no taller than 7 feet. And we have a gas station sign that's going in people's bedroom window, and that woman won't complain, unfortunately. The Warren Committee suggests a moratorium, that there not be a moratorium, because it would deny commercial businesses their right to certain signs. These signs aren't allowed. I mean, I'm saying non-conforming signs that aren't allowed. So, I mean, all we're saying with the moratorium is observe the laws, don't give any special treatment till October. Now, the original, this thing lays it all on the selectmen. The selectmen are the ones who are allowing these signs. They're certainly working very hard, but I don't think the selectmen should be the ones. They have approved most of these signs. Some were installed without permission. The selectmen were asked to allow angled sign, and some of them were already installed. And the selectmen, without a vote, they just nodded and said, sure, go ahead. We have backlit billboards on 2 buildings, 2 Granite Ave and Adams Street. I would hope the planning board would recommend the moratorium, and that they would recommend that the planning board appoint the
We do
committee.
signs?
Appoint the, well, it's a zoning, you just said it's zoning.
You just said- you
We
did
have
just say
zoning
that.
bylaws.
Yeah.
The sign bylaw is a zoning bylaw that's being ignored. And if you can't do anything at all, perhaps you could prepare a resolution for the May town meeting, just saying, hey, let's hold off on this and take a better look and let's protect our town. But definitely,
Well, you
the
saw,
planning
you
board.
saw my comments to you.
Yes, I
which
did.
suggested that maybe a committee would be in order to be appointed
By the
by
planning
by
board.
the moderator,
By the planning board.
by the planning board.
It's on my
Yes.
list of zoning articles to bring to October. So I'd
This
say
is-
at the minimum, we should limit it, we should have the moratorium go through October. And then we can decide if we want to restart the moratorium in October, or if we're going to bring our own
Right.
sign bylaw
We
forward.
have zoning that says if you want a sign, you can apply to the selectmen,
Right.
and the selectmen will
And
do
I
it.
wonder if that even
Do
had
we,
a public hearing.
What?
That's Article 7 of last May.
You're suggesting that
Of
there was no
October.
public hearing?
Well, when I asked somebody, what did the sign committee think about it, they said, oh, it was written so quickly, the sign committee never saw it. And I did ask one of the sign committee if they saw Article 7, they did not. I'm waiting to see when you held that
It would be
public,
in the Milton Times, you know.
when you had the public hearing on that
The
article.
ad
I think it
would be in
was,
the
I think it
Times.
was September or October, we had the public hearing on that.
You had a public hearing on
We
Article
have,
7?
we have to have, that was a residential sign, which went down at town meeting.
No.
Wait, which one are you talking
Article
about?
7 was the commercial sign that gave the selectmen
Oh,
all
that
the
one,
permission.
yes.
I think
Yeah,
they were
that was
both
a long
on
time
the
ago.
same,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
at
they
the
were.
same time.
Yeah,
Same
I was
hearing.
thinking-
Thank you
other
very
one.
much. If
Well-
nothing else, a resolution.
But, yeah, asking us to write stuff is, you as the proponent are supposed to write this stuff, and we are supposed to review it.
Well, I'm
I have
asking-
suggested to you that what you are doing by seeking a moratorium is impliedly repealing part of the zoning bylaw, which provides, well, you say that, but you may be wrong. Because it does seem to me, the zoning bylaw says if you want a illuminated sign, you go to the selectmen, you get a permit. And you're saying, we want this, we don't want this provision to be enforced, we want it repealed. Until such time as there's a committee appointed, until such time as the committee makes a recommendation, and until such time as the town meeting passes the recommendation. And it could be forever. You could be repealing the sign bylaw forever.
That gives the selectmen permission to allow illegal signs.
If they're permitted, they're not illegal. I mean, I don't, you're asking me to do something, I don't understand what the question, how to do it. I mean, I do understand that you could do a article saying we want to repeal these parts of the zoning and replace it with something. But I just don't see that this is a proper procedure. That's my own opinion.
Okay, well, I'd just say one thing, because I've taken too much time this time and last time, but in fact, if you could have town meeting approve Article 7 in May, then you could have town meeting do this in October. You can have town meeting do this in October, whatever month this is, May. But if
I
nothing
think
else.
the wording is such
Oh,
that
but
it
can
can't
you,
be.
are you able to add
It's
those
zoning.
words?
It's zoning.
Can you add those words? Non-conforming?
That doesn't, I don't think
Accurate?
that does it. That's just my opinion. The other members of the board may think that it makes it comprehensible and legal, but I don't think so.
I leave it to you. I didn't come to, I just came to
It's you are the
present.
proponent.
I just can't, there's other people that might.
Okay, who else wants to be heard on this?
So Amy Lenane on Grafton Ave, East Milton. So I think it's been acknowledged that some of the wording wasn't probably drafted appropriately for this article, even though I feel there's plenty of support for this article. So when I read the warrant's recommendation to send it to zoning, my concern is, you know, I feel like I've watched the meetings over time and that nothing has actually moved. So we can certainly try to have a citizens article, try to revisit this, but then we have a 6-month gap between now and then. So is there, my question to the planning board would be, is there anything that the planning board can do to help, you know, have another oversight? If we agree we can't do a moratorium, is there any mechanism to do another layer of oversight during this period? So that's one concern, and that's a question. So I think there's plenty of citizens that aren't thrilled with it, plenty. I could get thousands of signatures if we wanted to. But, you know, what are our options as a citizen? How can we do that, and how can we have a sign committee that I don't, you know, we have the bylaws, which are not always, you know, it's supposed to be the exception, these lit signs, and it doesn't seem to be the exception anymore. So that's what I would ask, that's what I'm asking of the planning board, to help me, the citizen, understand the process.
Well, I thought I mean, this does talk about a study committee, and it seems to me that having a study committee talk about signs rather than a subcommittee of the planning board might be a good idea. But that is, that's my view. It seems to me that out of this article, you could say it does request the appointment of a five-member sign committee to appointed by the moderator, and it would seem to me that that would be something to hold the town's feet to the fire a bit.
So as the planning board, is there a way to have that portion recommended at this point? I think the moratorium is what's causing concern, and that there's a conflict with the bylaw. I hear that in in the meetings I've gone to, and honestly, if you read the bylaw, I think we just have a shift in these approvals. I don't think historically the selectmen approved them, and more recently they're being approved pretty regularly. So there needs to be a shift or a discussion on this. So is there anything we can do to help between now and October? And if you're not the ones to ask, we'll have to research on our own.
Well, I mean, bear in mind, I don't think the warrant committee necessarily agrees with me that this is zoning, because otherwise they would have said, we don't have a recommendation from the planning board. My view is that it is zoning for the reasons I've stated.
Well, it's in zoning, right?
What?
Chapter 10 zoning. Sections of the bylaws, Chapter 10 zoning. So I would think it's zoning.
Well, I agree with you. There are others who are not so sure. It's a question. My own feeling is that you have, good.
I have thoughts, yes.
Good.
Would you like to
Good.
hear them?
Good.
So historically, the selectmen are the ones who approve signs. Yes, it's in the zoning bylaw, but the way Milton is set up is the sign goes to a sign review committee who look at it, and then the selectmen approve it. So there's no capacity within this article to add a second layer of oversight between now and October. So I think you've probably got a couple of choices. You could certainly request that the language be amended and to include the non-conforming and the backlit that Laura mentioned. You could define how long the moratorium lasts, so you could ask that it lasts through the October town meeting, or probably better, you've got...
This is for the future. I just want to be clear. Are you talking about if we
I'm
did
talking about
another
what you could do
citizens
to
article?
this,
So
what you could do to this article to make it work a little bit better.
for this town meeting?
Yes, for this town meeting, yes.
So a town meeting member would have to go to town meeting and do those things?
Right.
I'm not a town meeting member. I could not do those things.
You could, right, you could have a
Okay.
town meeting member do that.
Or you could ask the planning board.
Or you could ask the planning board.
do
We
that.
might agree to do that. I'm
Right,
just
so
like...
that's, I think, I
Yes.
just wanted to be clear why we're here tonight, is that we've already talked about the fact that this article is not clear.
Right.
And that there may have been mistakes made. That's, this is a new process.
Right.
Right, this is not, I'm not an expert. And so now the question is, if we have planning board support,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you've heard many citizens over time talk about this as a potential issue. If we have planning board support, how can the planning board help us to move forward more quickly than October?
So this is what I'm laying out, and I didn't want to speak for the planning board when I gave the option. So either a town meeting or a planning board member could make a couple of modifications to this, stand up and make an amendment. One would be to limit how long the moratorium is. One would be to define who the committee is, and Alex and I probably disagree with this, so we'll have to talk about that. The adding a different layer of responsibility wouldn't be, the technical term is within the scope of the article. So the article goes to town meeting members, they read it, they understand what they're going to be talking about. The idea of adding another layer of supervision is not on that. So it is unlikely to be able to happen. So then your choice would be, do you make the moratorium to October, a little bit beyond, and have a committee appointed by the moderator to work on it, or a committee appointed by the planning board or the planning board itself? As I said earlier to Alex, this is actually on my list of things I think
That's what I'm
the town
hearing.
meeting
It's
should bring
not-
forward to October. So it is possible that the planning board could move a little bit more quickly than a committee appointed by the moderator, just because the moderator has to appoint the committee, they have to get started, and the language would be due in August. So we could probably move a little bit faster, but it will depend on what my colleagues say as well, if they're willing to do that. That's about the limit of what we could do within the
That's a
article as
lot.
it is.
So I think that's what we're asking for, is that you have citizens that are expressing it, you have citizens that don't probably know the process as well as you do, and we're asking for the planning board to help us, because I think you've heard these concerns historically. This is not the first time you've heard it. This is the first time you've heard it in a formal way. So I think that I would like that to be heard, that's what we're coming to you for. And that's why we're here today. Obviously, we went to the warrant committee, and the issues with the article were identified. I hear that. That's not, I'm not hurt by those comments. That's what happens. So I just want to be clear on what we're asking of the planning board. And I think if the planning board is a piece of this, it's part of the planning board's responsibility to at least to act as, take the responsibility to say, we can do this or we can't do this, and we're willing to do this, or it doesn't fit into the schedule. That's what I would like.
So what is the, what are we willing to do for May?
It seems like what you said about, it's within the bylaw for somebody to go to the selectmen and have a sign more or less approved by the selectmen,
That's what it says.
even though the sign may be non-conforming.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that, like with the ZBA, when people go for variances and things that are non-conforming, they have to have a clear explanation of why they need to have that. It seems to me what's going on, and I can't say firsthand because I've never been to a meeting with the selectmen where they're approved a sign, but it seems to me that signs are just being approved without the person who's bringing it forward explaining why they can't stay within the conformity of the bylaw and put up a sign like that. Why they need to go beyond the bylaw and put up a neon sign or LED backlit sign. It seems like it's just, it seems like, I don't want to say the selectmen, but it seems like the bylaw is not working as it was intended.
What is the date of the bylaw? When was that bylaw last amended?
Just last year, but
Yeah, we did that just for the
we have the head of the sign review committee here with us, and maybe he would like to come up and say a few words. John, would you?
And Ray Bill also on the committee.
Good evening.
Well, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Hey, guys.
How can we help?
Could you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure. John Zickwitz.
Can I ask a question? When somebody comes forward with a sign and it doesn't conform to the bylaw as it exists, is it required of them to show a hardship of why they need to go beyond the bylaw and put up something different?
Are you speaking the sign design itself or the lighting of the sign?
Either.
Either. What we, what they do is submit what they would like to have for a sign. It seems like because of the size of the sign, most signs don't fit. I'm saying right, Bill? They don't conform because if you look at our bylaws, it's such a minuscule area that you're allowed for signage. So most signs don't. And so the committee had put together design handbook for guidelines on how to design a sign for Milton. So they usually go through these items, which are not part of the bylaw, and we review them based on this, and then we give our recommendations to the selectmen.
So, and you just spoke about size. That may be one issue.
Size, design,
Somebody may explain that, you know, if, like you stated, it's so minuscule and I'm trying to advertise a business, it just isn't, it's ineffective.
correct.
Do they go on to explain why they need neon or why they need LED backlighting?
Sometimes they do, yes.
Don't you believe they should, always should if it's non-conforming?
Yes. And they typically, we typically have a discussion on the type of lighting, how it should, that it should be, you know, softer lighting, not spill into the neighborhood, be appropriate for what they're trying to light, and we go through all those issues and.
Again, when I speak, I'm not speaking firsthand because I haven't followed this process, so I apologize for that. But it would seem to me that it would be either the committee or the selectmen's job to say, you need to show me a hardship. You need to explain to me why you need this, why you need something that doesn't conform to the bylaw as it exists.
Well, right now, there's nothing in the bylaw for lighting. There's no conforming or non-conforming. If I read it right, it just, everything with lighting issues goes to the selectmen. There's nothing conforming in lighting, there's nothing non-conforming in lighting. And that could use some meat. Because there's nothing right now when it comes to lighting. It just says all lighting goes to selectmen to review, and it doesn't say what's right, what's wrong. So we use our Ray design signs for a living. I'm an architect, so we use our kind of design intellect to see what would look appropriate on that building, how it would fit within the facade and the character of the building, and we make our recommendations based
To make
on
sure that it's dialed back appropriately.
So nothing is bright, and so sometimes our recommendations are accepted, sometimes they're not.
Because whether a sign is
So-
backlit or frontlit doesn't necessarily affect the brightness or the impact that it's going to have on the surroundings.
Have you ever been overruled because you are too liberal and the selectmen think it needs to be drawn back?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, but the other way
It's
happens.
usually the other way.
I understand that it happens the
Usually
other way.
something we did not support and it got approved.
I mean, it sounds like we're being reactive, not proactive in our sign design. Certainly from my standpoint, it would be, we should be making decisions based on a better guideline that has some meat and actual enforceability as opposed to personal taste.
Again, I'm at a loss. I thought
Short term.
some period of time ago, we discussed some language that talked about lighting,
Yeah.
and that didn't get into a bylaw of any sort.
That was the one that went, that was the residential one that went to town meeting, and town meeting voted it down.
Did they
so-
vote it down, or did they vote it back to planning
Well,
board?
they voted it back to planning
Right.
board, which was, thank you.
And that was
Which
only
is why
relative
I
to
wanted it-
residential signing.
Yeah, I wanted to do a full review of both commercial and residential, and full disclosure, I've actually done some writing of sign guidelines for work. So I kind of have an interest in it.
It would seem to
setting
be the
up.
time to.
Yeah.
And I've actually done the same, so we can start building our committee
Yeah,
here.
and I feel that the sign review committee has had significant experience in seeing what types of signs have come to Milton and understanding the limitations of the current bylaw.
I mean, these gentlemen, like, a lot of people in Milton have
Right.
given freely of their time, and it's
It'd be
commendable.
nice to tap into that
But
experience.
it would seem that we also need to listen to the citizenry.
Right.
Well, I think also there's a lot of new technology that, even over the last 5 years with signage, has really changed dramatically, and I think our bylaws need to work to at least keep up with that and encourage best practices.
They need to encourage best practices, and they need to have a standard that meets with the rest of the town, so that one area is not getting treated differently from another area of town.
I mean, the reality is that once you issue a sign, once you grant a sign, you've got it.
Right,
It's pretty hard to
exactly.
get rid of them. Ask,
I think
ask
that was-
Framingham, ask anywhere along Route
Yeah.
1.
That was said earlier, and, you know, lo and behold, again, we don't dislike our neighbors, but I prefer to ride down Randolph Ave in Milton to Randolph Ave in Randolph.
And
if we
we've
allow
got
signs in one
this.
area, like you say,
Yeah.
it's gonna
Or
populate.
even, and not even necessarily precedent setting, but just like it or hate it, the sleepy sign is not going anywhere. That's been made clear, that it's there and it's going to stay
Yeah,
there.
have it in, yeah.
And certainly there was a dialogue started around that sign just around town. I think we all heard it. So to the extent that there's a commotion going on, I think I personally think the moratorium is very appropriate on a limited basis, from a time standpoint, I wouldn't want to see this go much beyond October. And, I share Emily's concern just from a committee standpoint that I've been on committees. I don't know how you get anywhere by August with a committee.
Well,
So I'm not sure what
I was gonna say,
where that serves us.
A limit is obviously something that has to be there, but in
Right.
August, to me, would seem to be fair, and if it either came back to the planning board or went to a committee to, add language to the bylaw, if we were on the verge of accomplishing that and we needed a little more time, we could go back, revisit that in October,
Exactly.
August.
We could certainly get sufficient language in place for August that it would be minor tweaks for what went before the planning board, I think. And that design book that you guys have been using, I think, becomes a good basis, plus the experience you've had, and say, look, these signs that are coming to us are not conforming. What's the problem? What's good and what's bad, and how do we actually adjust our bylaws for that?
Well, how this got generated was when the selectmen first set up the sign committee. We looked at the bylaws, and there really wasn't a lot in there, so we took Brookline, Wellesley, and Hingham's sign bylaws, and we reviewed them and created this guideline out of those 3 bylaws.
It's going to be the basis for
And so that's how, because we needed something to judge signs against, because
Right.
there really wasn't anything. So if everyone got this when they applied for a sign, at least then everyone was being dealt with the same way.
Right.
It wasn't, everyone dealt the same way, because here, we'd like you to follow these guidelines. Of course, some people say, we don't want to, and that just goes to the selectmen.
So then
To
how
the
do we
ex-
recodify them?
Even to the extent that that can be recodified to say that the zoning requires you to follow the sign guidelines, and then the sign guidelines can be updated on a periodic basis
Right.
It just seems to me.
by the sign committee.
If it's the case, and again, I don't follow it firsthand, but it seems odd to me if things go to the selectmen and they just approve things without understanding why this is so necessary.
Well, if it's not codified, then they don't have to
Basis.
approve the design. I mean, the guidelines is exactly, it's a guideline. It's, let's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So then how do we give them the teeth in the zoning
Yep.
that allows them to approve something based on the zoning?
Not to drag this out, but could you just give us a real brief synopsis of the base, how many members are on your committee?
Right now, there are 3 members.
3 members, okay. So I mean, to the extent, Emily, that those members could be incorporated into any sign committee that may be a component of this planning board, and that sign committee may be how to best shape this committee.
I think that makes sense. That's 5 members right there. If
Right.
There's 2 of us and 3 of them, and then we work on having some sort of public meeting prior to August so that people get a chance to look at a draft copy of what we're suggesting, and we can get some public feedback. I think that could work if you guys are up for it.
I mean, what we did discuss the petition, and and we were looking at an even earlier one than it sounds like what has been discussed now, so we weren't quite sure what was the intent. We knew about some of the concerns about some of the signs in town, so the warrant committee asked for our comments, and so what we were recommending is some changes to the zoning bylaws. One, that, like the sleepy sign, that electronic message board, you just put it in the bylaw that you don't allow those anymore.
Right.
And just be done with it. Then we also recommended, let me just look here that was one.
Strengthen the definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because under definitions, what the different types of signs, whether they're freestanding, a wall sign, a pole sign, a directory, a window sign, the types of signs, the types of lit signs, the location for signs, rooftops, walls, lawns. We don't have any of this stuff in our bylaw.
Right.
The number of signs that can go on that a business is allowed. A definition of temporary signs, define them. Are they banners? Are they the feathers that we don't allow now? Are they A-frames, which seem to be prolific?
The other thing we seem to run into a lot in a sign committee is, as you mentioned, a sign gets approved, and then somehow it becomes grandfathered in. And I don't know why that should be. If the business moves out, the sign should go with them. This really shouldn't grandfather in a sign.
It should really be written to the business.
So that should be, so that's something else we thought could be in the bylaws, where when the business closed down, building gets sold, the sign goes away and you start over again. It shouldn't, because we've ended up with bad signs because they've been on a building and we get told, oh, it's grandfathered, you can't do anything with it.
Right.
Right.
And I don't
Until you
see why
change,
that
no,
should.
but even just by zoning, once you change the use, that should eliminate that grandfathering, but that's a separate.
Well, sometimes it's not, it's a business to a
I
business, so the
understand.
use isn't changing,
Right,
but
I
the
understand.
tenant is,
I
so,
understand.
so it should go away with the tenant, or if the owner sells the building, something that building owner had shouldn't just automatically go to the new building owner.
Just another aspect of putting more teeth in the bylaw.
So would you have time to pull together a list of the things that you've noticed that are issues that we could
Sure.
use as a basis for a starting point? That'd be great.
Absolutely.
So how do we want to handle
What-
this?
Come on up and we'll get to you.
I think we want to
Send it back
have
to
the
us.
planning board address at town meeting that we'd like to have the,
Right.
And
On a
move
limited
that
basis.
microphone over a little bit so that we can,
So I'm trying to understand, it sounds like you're agreeing that this is a necessary process. That's why I just want to be really clear that because you have been the committee and I've read
Some parts
this
of
and
it are
these are.
necessary, I believe,
Right,
not
so-
the whole thing. I don't think the whole sign has to, I think lighting definitely needs to be reviewed.
Right,
Because
so
there's
the-
no guidelines right
and-
now as far
and-
as lighting.
Right, so that's what the not correctly worded article was that we need to review it and we wanted a moratorium on it. So,
But I'm not sure if I agree on a moratorium, because if you have a business that opens up and they need some lighting, what do they do if they open up and they can't get lighting for 6 months?
Well, I mean, I will say the nice thing about this, if we limited this to October, a fair amount of that period of time will have natural light through 8 o'clock.
Yep.
And, then you're really just dealing with dusk for about an hour. It starts to wane a little bit towards the end of the period, but at least you've got fairly good lighting
Yep.
through most of the business hours.
And if we support the change in language to backlit signs, then they could still have something illuminated from a light that sits in front of the sign or a downlit sign.
Right.
So it wouldn't be too harsh on them.
That's fine.
So, and then I think what we do, so we limit it to October and maybe November to give the AG
To give the
time
AG
to
time to
review
review, right.
it, and then have it sent, rather than having it a 5-member committee, have it sent back to the planning board for study.
So my only concern with that, and I don't know if it is, I'm unclear on if things have gone to the sign committee and been approved, and I guess you're saying they had your recommendation or didn't have your recommendation, so do we have another outside, I mean, I'd be happy to be on a committee or somebody with another view, because, Blue Hills Bank, I almost, pulled over in my car when I came around, there's a strip lit that was gonna blink on that.
That's not the sign, though.
So that's, I just wanna make
That's a
sure
different issue.
somehow
That's
they.
the building design, that's not the signage.
But I want to, I guess from my concern, if we've gotten this far down the process, I want to make sure those things are discussed, because I'm confused when I read, all illuminated signs require Board of Selectmen approval. In recent years, the Board of Selectmen has approved indirect, externally illuminated signs, but has not approved internal illumination. But all of a sudden, we have all this internal illumination. So somewhere in the last 4 years.
That's a difference in definition, is what you're hearing there. An indirect sign is a sign that's lit like the Ketch's Law at 2 Granite, because it's, the light source isn't seen.
Yeah, no, we like the indirect lights. Those are the ones Fitness Unlimited has. We
No,
agree
those are
with.
direct lights.
Those are direct lights.
So,
Indirect is when it's behind it.
Indirect is the Ketch's Law sign that you don't like.
Indirect is
oh,
extra
that
space
is-
storage.
and it,
So ultimately, I think we need to review as
Some
a,
towns don't consider that
Yeah.
to be internally lit.
That's where Bill's point about the definitions is critical.
need to go
make
through it
sure
all.
See,
that-
those are the
right.
guidelines that you're reading, that's not zoning you're reading, those are our design guidelines that we put together.
right.
As I hear it, there is a view that the planning board is willing to review this for October. You say you'd like some citizen input rather than just appearing at one hearing. You'd like someone to keep an eye on the planning board to make sure they don't go astray. I think that's what you say. And then I have this undercurrent that there should be a moratorium, and if there should be a moratorium, someone's got to draw the language up. I don't know how to do it. So someone has to do it, and we have to vote it tonight so we can get it over to the warrant committee.
I'll have a look at it.
What?
I'll have a look at it.
do you want to suspend this to a little bit later on tonight?
Well,
While you look
if
at it?
I would say that if we could do it for the end of the, if we could have the vote at the end of the night.
So
that
shall we
makes sense,
suspend
'cause
this
it's
and
gonna take a little
resume?
while, yeah.
We can,
Suspend the discussion.
I suppose making people stay here till 10 so that we have the vote on the signs.
Well, how would you, I mean, I
I
can't write the language in 2 minutes.
All right.
So, but we could have a vote that we're going to support the moratorium, and then I can firm up the language.
Well, I think that's fine.
Well-
If you want to have a moratorium, I don't see how you can do it, so I will abstain on this vote rather than vote against it. But make a motion and.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and suspend the discussion to the final agenda item on the meeting. Can I do that?
Making the people wait till 10 is not fair.
Can we
Can we vote? and-
logistically, can we vote to
You just
Ask or allow Emily to write language?
Vote to say that you're going to request a moratorium
Yes,
until
yes. And
October.
Emily's gonna write the language.
And that Mrs.
Great.
Ennis
Yes.
will come
I
up with the
withdraw my
language.
motion. Do you
Yeah,
want to rephrase?
I like
Right.
that. And to send it back to the planning board.
Then I make a motion to vote on sending wording to the town meeting that requests a moratorium on signs, and that Emily will,
Not on all sides.
no,
Backlit
no,
and
no,
Non-conforming
signs.
backlit,
Right.
You have
yes.
Mr. Clark looks bewildered, as he should, but what's your question, Phil?
I think you're going all different directions. Your moratorium, are you using the language from the article?
No, I'm writing new
Put forth?
language. I'm writing, so far what I've got is to see if the town will vote to declare a moratorium until November 30th, 2015 on the approval of non-conforming backlit signs and to refer the question of illuminated signage to the planning board for further study.
I
That's
think
what you
what John said, there's no
There's
such
no
thing as
non-conforming,
Oh, that's right. Well, then
backlit
take-
signs there.
How about then just
It has
backlit
the
signs?
misnomer.
well, is it non-conforming, comma, and back, because they're.
But there are
like I said, there's a
LED
size
signs
element.
too. The gas
Right, but I
station
think we're dealing
signs
with
are not
lighting issue here.
backlit.
Yeah, but
But LED is also used
Mixing.
to properly.
I
light
understand
signs.
that, but the
We
gas
call it
station signs
So
are
you're
a
saying we should use the word
particular issue.
indirect signage?
Yeah, I know.
Is that the more correct term?
You know what? Different people use different terms.
It's
It's
very
considered
confusing.
halo lit a sign.
I know what halo it is.
That's what it is.
Okay.
And
And
that,
that's generally not
We allow
considered
that.
to be internally lit. Because the
We
internally
do
lit
allow
sign
that.
is like a
Right,
Dunkin'
I like
Donuts
halo
sign.
sign.
Garbage base.
No, I like halo lit signing.
we encourage it.
Yeah, I would exactly would.
Approve that.
So I've got the basic language now, we just need to know what to call that piece that we're
I
putting a
think your
moratorium
moratorium part, let's say the whole thing goes to town meeting in
Yes.
October,
on. Yep.
and it gets voted down.
Then
Is your
the mor-
moratorium still in place?
No, it ends on
No.
November 30th.
November 30th.
I mean, you're holding hostage until we've got the new restaurant coming. We have a gas station that's changing signs next week.
Does it already have its
Well, that
permit?
wouldn't be, the moratorium doesn't go into effect.
He's already in the business
until the
district.
AG approves it, which probably isn't until July. So it's really only going to be in fact July, August.
She doesn't approve
Well,
the
no,
stuff
but
from
if
May
it's
until
zoning.
September.
If
Well,
it's
September.
zoning,
It's going to be in effect for 1
if
month.
it's zoning.
Yes.
If it's not zoning, then it goes into effect right away.
I thought we
Yes.
agreed that this is zoning.
No.
No, it goes
I
into
gave
effect.
my opinion that it was zoning, and the
As soon as you, as
committee
soon as you
gave a
vote it,
comment indicating that it isn't zoning.
as soon as you vote it, it's enacting.
Oh, you think that
Yes.
As soon as.
It's the same thing as somebody,
it
if you
is
write it.
zoning, the fact that we have
Yes,
had the notice,
yes.
even though the notice doesn't say anything about
If you say yes and you change it, you're making it starting now.
I do think the new restaurant could be a problem.
Well, it depends on what time.
The
the
new
sign
restaurant
will
hasn't
put
even
up.
pulled a building permit yet.
And have
They have part of it.
Okay, the new restaurant's not gonna be worried about signage for,
You have a
It's in
question,
October.
Alex.
Yes,
leave that when I see
So,
it.
could I make a comment since you're well into your discussions about this?
of course, come and
just talk.
speak into the
See.
microphone, and introduce yourself for those who may
Marion
not know you.
McKettrick, I'm an attorney in Milton. I used to be a selectman. I used to sit on some of these decisions. And I'm very happy to say that while I was a selectman, the design review committee was created. It's a pretty good system, but it's not perfect because of exactly what's been said. Sign review committee can make a recommendation, but the selectmen don't have to follow it. Any sign that is not allowed by our sign bylaw can be reviewed by the sign Board of Selectmen, and they can approve it. There's no limit to what the selectmen can approve. What's bothering me about this discussion is that the zoning bylaw says, designates the selectmen as the body to make that decision. So if you're going to have a moratorium, I think what you're trying to do here is, you're trying to say that the selectmen cannot make decisions about illuminated signs between X date and X date. No decisions, because the only decisions they make are decisions to allow illuminated signs. They're not allowed by our bylaw. So there may be something wrong with the way the proposal is worded, which is, as Alex is
That's what we're trying to fix.
pointing out, you're going to have to word the amendment correctly if it's possible to do it, and it may be. I agree with the spirit of this proposal for the reasons that have been explained tonight. I also have to point out, though, that I have been working with Seasons Hospice, which is building a new building on Randolph Ave. This does not present a problem for them if you set up a limited moratorium period. But should there be a situation where no illumination can be allowed for a sign for Seasons Hospice for a long period of time, I think that's a real problem, because that's a business that's in a residential zone. It's allowed because of various reasons. There's a charitable foundation that owns the building and so forth. If it operates day and night, and people have to be able to find it. So there will have to be some sort of tasteful illumination on that sign, and the sign review committee, they're hoping, will give some good advice about how to do that. So I first say, I support the idea of a limitation on giving approvals for what I call lit signs. I don't understand this, when you're talking about different kinds of lighting, it's very confusing. If you're going to do this, you're probably going to have to say lit signs. They're not allowed by our bylaw. But you're going to have to look at the language of the bylaw and see what the authority of the Board of Selectmen is, and then you're going to have to write the amendment to properly define that. Or it could be that you can't do it because it's too different from what's
I
been
thought it was my
proposed.
understanding that the bylaw doesn't address lighting.
The bylaw designates the selectmen.
Oh, I understand that part, but
As-
it doesn't really
The
give any
selectmen,
guidelines.
selectmen do not approve
It
signs.
doesn't give any guidelines for lighting.
Selectmen, that's right.
So if-
They're
if-
not
if Emily-
allowed.
If Emily worded it correctly, we could limit certain types of lighting, where if somebody wanted to put a spotlight at ground level up at their sign, that might be fine.
But
You
can
can
limit
certainly
types of
rewrite the
lighting, but
bylaw.
You're not gonna be able to limit the fact that people can light signs, because you can light them just as brightly from the outside as you can from the inside.
Right.
And I think
So-
that's what people have a problem with, is the type of light, not the fact that a guy wants to light the sign in
More
front of
the
the store.
brightness of the lighting.
It may be the brightness, but I think it's the neon and the Las Vegas type sign versus a nice wooden sign with a great big old bright light flashing, spotted on it so you can see it day and night. I think that's the difference. Maybe people that have come up and spoke against the situation that's at hand can say that that's what they do mean. Or maybe that's not what they mean.
And I think the confusion in the process is why this is taking so much time, and how the bylaw is written in keeping this moving is very important. And I feel like the confusion just adds bureaucracy to
What-
it, so.
I think you've got a good argument, and I think we've got a good argument in the fact that the bylaw doesn't even address lighting. That's absurd.
Right. I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is to refer the illumination of signs back to the planning board for further study. That's the easiest, without writing the moratorium is
It's not our
the part
intent to
that's
stop
tricky.
someone from lighting their sign.
Right,
It's the
exactly.
style
Yes.
of lighting that works.
Look,
Can you
the
add-
select-
How do you define that in the
selectmen-
Well, that's what we're trying
Yeah.
to
The
figure out.
selectmen are going to have to approve a sign, but
We're not trying to stop signs.
I understand
We're not
that.
even trying
The
to stop
selectmen-
illuminated
The
signs.
selectmen, I mean, a moratorium simply says the selectmen are not going to do their job, the sign committee is not going to do its job. I mean, we've got a.
No, they can still
sign
do their
com-
job.
Look.
We're just asking them to limit certain types of
All
signs
right.
for a period of time.
And, I think that the point has been made. I don't think we need a formal moratorium, I think that the selectmen will pay attention.
Well, my only concern about the formal
From what I
board-
hear,
Yeah.
they don't take the advice of the sign committee, so I don't see why they would,
I will
in all
say-
honesty.
So can we ask for it to be added that the planning board be added to the approval process during this period? So then, if you wanted to, I know that's,
It won't be within the
Way
scope.
outside the scope.
Yeah, it's
Look,
not within the scope.
If the
Fine.
zoning gets changed, it's going to happen in October. If you want to do a moratorium, feel free, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
May I just make a suggestion, which is that at a minimum, the planning board should send a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that they do not feel that they should approve whatever definition of illuminated signs you want. You could even just do illuminated signs, any illuminated signs between now and whatever date you set in October, because you were reviewing the bylaw, there's confusion, there's concern, and it's an area that needs work. I mean, yes, the selectmen don't have to do what you ask them to, but I think they'll listen to you.
And I think that you could have this letter ready at our next meeting.
Yes.
If we had
I
a
could, as a matter
moratorium,
of
they would
fact.
have to do what town committee told them.
And I
I
think,
like the stronger version myself, so I think we should move a vote. And
Yeah.
we have a lot more to do tonight.
so then can we change the wording to at least get the committee going? I mean, if the moratorium won't,
Definitely change the wording to have
So-
it go to
so
the
the
planning
planning
board for
board
further
will
study and
make
appoint a
that-
committee, yes.
and then a citizen will be a citizen member of the
We'll add a
committee?
citizen member, yeah.
All right.
okay, Laura, do you have something to add?
Keep it with the planning board. We have a selectman, I don't know if we'll have a majority of selectmen who said, get out of the 19th century, get into the 20th century. Lead signs are here to stay.
Well, again, I think there's a misconception here. I don't think anybody is saying don't light signs.
No, definitely.
No,
It's the
I mean,
method of
they've
lighting.
always been, I mean, you look at Fitness Unlimited, it's the signs over it.
Very acceptable
And they're
lighting.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And those people
But the
have to
bulb is
look at
LED.
have to look at a sign
It's still LED.
on a building
That's fine.
across the street for the expressway. They have to look at that. And as I read the sign bylaw, you're only allowed one sign on a building. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the bylaw here.
Okay, now, do we have
Yes.
a motion as to what you want to do with this?
Yes. Well, here's what I want to do with it, so you'll see if you agree or not. Recommend that the town refer the matter of illuminated signs back to the planning board for further study. The planning board will appoint a committee, including members of the sign review committee and a citizen representative.
I think
Clean.
that
I think it'd still be nice.
And we'll write a letter, but we'll do that
No,
before
I
town
think it'd be
meeting.
still nice if we added that in the meantime, there's a moratorium till, like you say, November.
I agree.
And again, it's not on lit
On
signs.
what?
On lit
I
signs.
think we could help, these gentlemen could help us word it correctly.
well,
Well, to
Why
Marion's
don't you-
point, I think it has to be lit or nothing, because at this point, there's no specification. It's
Right,
we don't
what's
allow
bad and
lit
what's good.
Yeah.
signs. So I don't think I don't want to be making the decision about what's bad and what's good without some more thought. I'm not going to make the decision sitting
But the
here.
question is, if we ban all lit, if we have a moratorium on all lit signs between now and October, what are the repercussions?
Even the gas station, I mean,
What
if
about
he's gonna
public
replace the
safety
sign in
signs?
kind, I don't see why that's a
It
problem.
exempts
Public
municipal
safety is
signs, we'd
all
have to put that in
exempted.
there. Well, we'd have to make sure we put that back in there.
Would you say, Bill, is a gas station, who else wants to replace the sign?
You've got the hospice, which is going to put up its sign. You've got the new restaurant, and you've got the new gas station.
I think Marion just said that, between now and November, she didn't think that would be a significant problem for them.
For the hospice,
Right.
but what about the restaurant and the gas station?
Well, I think if those people replace in kind, I don't think that should be a problem.
So you're saying they can replace in kind.
There's no sign on the new restaurant.
The new restaurant.
There's no sign.
No, again, are they gonna need a sign between now and November? I don't know.
okay, what is the motion?
Okay, so recommend
Just have it next week.
that we refer the issue of illuminated signs back to the planning board for further study. The planning board will appoint a committee, including members of the sign review committee and a citizen representative. Do we want to add the moratorium till November 30th
I think we
on
should.
lit signs?
I think we should.
All right, I'll put that in the, okay.
Till November 30th?
November 30th, give the AG time to review it. Town meeting's not till the end of October.
But once it's passed, then
Well, we could do it October 31st if you
I
prefer.
think that it's.
I'm fine with October 31st, because that gives the selectmen a direction to
The
be
zoning
making
reverts
decisions based
back
on.
to
They will
the
have heard
time of
the,
passage, once
Back
it's
to the time of
approved.
passage, but until the Attorney General looks at it, the Attorney General won't rule on October's town meeting until end of February, at the earliest.
fine, October 31st is fine. It gives the selectmen guidance at that
October
point from the
31st.
town meeting.
October 31st? All right, October 31st.
Yes. Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Okay, any discussion on, we have, look, the warrant committee is here. Hey, we're going to hear from the warrant committee. You are hiding back there. But you finally realized that you had to,
When you say for illumination for further study, I mean, is it going to make it clear to people, even
Welcome.
town meeting people, that it's not further study, it's establishing lighting guidelines?
And I don't think it should be.
We can do that in our comments.
All right.
Sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Well, I
why
think I
don't you
may
introduce
have
yourself?
something to add here. I'm Ted Hayes, I'm the chair of the warrant committee, and this is a vexed subject, no question. And we made our recommendation, well, we did not like the idea of a moratorium, for starters, but we do recognize that this is a subject that should be addressed, and we thought that we should send it, we didn't want to send it to you. We thought, since the selectmen were in charge of signage, that it should go to them, and that they might well enlist your aid